Hello there. So this is one of the One Spatial webinars entitled 5 Hot Features You Might Have Missed in FME 2020. This is part of our 5 Hot Features series. We do this most years, digging into some of the features that have turned up in the new release that perhaps might not have been immediately obvious or talked about in too much detail. So we're going to get into a little bit of that for you in this session. If you haven't been involved or joined in one of our webinars in the past, we are One Spatial. We are spatial systems data integrators. We work with a number of different vertical markets or sectors within the industry. We have a number of offices around the world, and you can also see that we have a number of technology partners that we focus our attention on, and that's because we provide best-of-breed consultancy services around our own technology stack, but also plugging in where necessary and where useful other vendors that we think are worth focusing our attention on to provide our customers with the best solutions. The focus for today is around the FME technology stack, and that is produced by an organisation called Safe Software, who are over in Vancouver in Canada. I head up our FME division. My name is David Eagle. We have been Safe Software partners for over 20 years now, and we focus around, as I mentioned, the FME technology stack, which includes FME Desktop, FME Server, and FME Cloud. We're a developer partner, which means that we build FME under the bonnet of our own solutions, but we also have a number of dedicated staff who focus wholly on the FME product. And myself included, and a number of my technical colleagues have the FME certifications that allow us to be a partner with Safe. If you want to get in touch with us about anything at all, drop us a note at fme@onespatial.com and we'd be happy to help you. We do a number of things. We provide product evaluations. That is for organisations that perhaps haven't yet decided whether FME is the right tool for them. We're more than happy to help you prove that one way or the other. We provide consultancy and training services and any type of mentoring that you might want around the tools. And of course you can buy FME from us, and you can also get your support and maintenance from us. All of our FME consultants have got more than 10 years experience. We're all very focused and have a lot of history with the technology, so we'd be very interested in helping you out. During the session, you're welcome to drop any message or question you might have into the questions section of GoToWebinar. I will do my best to address the technical questions at the end of the session. We have a couple of my colleagues. Dale Parkinson is on the webinar, and he can deal with any commercial questions you might have throughout the session. So right into the detail then. Let's have a look. FME 2020, well, it's available right now. It's been around for a little while, so launched. The new release is usually released around March time, and we're expecting a .1 in the summer and a .2 in the autumn. But as I say, FME 2020 is available right now. If you go to our website, onespatial.com, FME-desktop or FME-server, and you can request a trial license to those products and get access to the installers direct from our website. We have recently taken part in the FME World Tour. Those videos will be available in the next week on our on-demand webinars. If you're watching the recording of this session, they'll already be there, so you can go and look at any of the World Tour content that we've done. Safe Software have also done a virtual roadshow. These World Tour sessions are done annually. In the past, we have had physical events. This year, it's been largely a wholly virtual tour for obvious reasons. The recordings are available of Safe Software sessions. There's also a blog article around the new features. Those are highlighting that article highlights the majority of the headline features. But because those headlines don't always tell the whole story, what we've done is dig under the covers a little bit and find a few things that you might not have seen. Maybe SAFE or ourselves haven't provided as much information as would be useful to you to date, or maybe it's just something that completely slipped by without getting any headline at all. So that's what the focus is for today, a little bit of extra detail. If you want to find out the detail, you're welcome to go and do that. You can just go and have a look at SAFE's download page. So if you go to safe.com/downloads, I'm just going to do that and drag that into the screen so you can see that now. You can see here, this is where you would get your downloads from at any point. You can see here's FME Desktop, here's FME Server, here's the different platforms you can download it for and the different bit versions. But importantly, there is also a changelog. And the changelog, if you click into it, you can see that there's a very long text document that has a lot of detail about things that have changed, things that have been fixed, things that have been added in. And if you dig through that using Control F and use your search terms for things that you're interested in, you might discover things that matter to you that make it important for you to consider upgrading either a minor point release or a major version. Depending on what that change is. So that changelog is important to take a look at every now and again. Let's have a look at the 5 hot features then. So there's a few that we're going to focus on in here. The first one is packages. Now, some of you I know that have signed up today did attend the World Tour event, and we talked about packages in a bit of detail, but there's some elements of it that we didn't cover, and that's what I want to make sure we highlight now. Packages were available as of last year, so they're not new. They are, however, a mechanism by which content is now being delivered much more frequently, and that is new, and that's why we want to focus our attention on it, because it is going to matter to most people using FME, because there is a larger breadth of content coming through that mechanism now. So we're going to have a look at that. If we just go over to the FME Hub, you can see hub.safe.com. This is where some of the community content is delivered, and you can see in here that if we go to this item type on the left hand side, you can filter on packages, and you'll immediately see that this Socrata reader and writer has been delivered as a package, and it was updated, what's that, just yesterday. Okay, so there's a few others in here, and you'll see there's an increasingly long list of packages available, a number of pages that are worth having a look at. So that's the first thing. That's where you would go and find packages and have a look at what's possible. Why they're important though, and what they contain, if we start with the first question, why they're important because a lot of, increasingly, FME is about connectivity. That means that we're not just talking about adding the odd format to FME every now and again, but there are a lot of tools like transformers that are connecting tools. If you go and search for connector in the transformer gallery, you'll find a series of transformers for connecting out to external data sources. A lot of readers, writers, and also transformers are backed by something called an application program interface, an API. Those are capabilities that deliver a packet of information based on a question that you ask that service. So they change, and they're also controlled by a third-party organization that SAFE have no control over. The average lifespan of an API is about 18 months. If something changes in that third-party capability, the impact of that on you with your installation of FME is that you might have to do a major upgrade of FME. Uninstall the existing version, reinstall the new version. The challenge with that in a lot of organisations is people don't have admin rights to do that. Larger organisations are obviously risk averse. They don't want to do a deployment on lots of different machines. They want to make sure that they pick a build and stick with it for a period of time. You are now able to consider doing that. It's a lot less likely that you'll have to do a new deployment of FME because something changes in a third-party capability that FME relies on. Packages are a bundle of components, a portable set of components that you download independently of your local install of FME, and you install that into your build of FME that you have on your machine. And in some cases, when they're deployed, they are backwards compatible, and that's the first time we've seen that sort of thing. Maybe as much as one version back into the deployed version of FME that you have. Packages, what do you get inside them? Well, you can have a reader, a writer, or both. You can have a transformer or more than one. You can have web connections or more than one, and you will generally have any third-party dependencies like any Python code that is necessary to make those things work bundled inside it. The image on the right hand side, that bit of text there, shows you the structure of what is inside one of those zip files, because effectively it's a glorified zip file, an FPKG file. You extract it out, and inside it are those components that are around the package itself. You don't always have all of those things. It might just be one of those. In terms of how that's going to affect you, it is going to mean that, you know, organisations that don't want to move regularly probably aren't going to need to quite so much. As I say, you know, you're going to just download that third-party package, that separate package. It is, at the moment, it is only built by SAFE, so that's something to bear in mind. Community members, people publishing content to the FME hub, you can only do that yourself through the mechanism of custom transformers or web connections or individual readers and writers. You can't produce a package. That is reserved for SAFE at the moment. In terms of what that might mean in order to get access to these packages, is that you might need proxy configuration on your FME on your local machine in order to get to the internet. You might need to whitelist the hub on your web server, and there's a chance that you might need the package vetting before you're allowed to deploy it. So there's a few things to consider, but they are going to make life easier. Just to look at a little bit of the detail, a couple of transformers that existed in FME as a standard core tools in the core build up until very recently, the S3 connector and the emailer, have both been removed from the core build and deployed into a package. So now you have to physically download them if you want to use them the first time round. The Amazon Recognition connector, that's a brand new transformer to FME 2020. There's quite a lot of machine learning and artificial intelligence tools creeping into FME now. That's one of those. And the Google Sheets connector, that's going to be deployed as a package in the autumn. And that is one that may be backwards compatible to FME 2019, and that's because Google are changing the Google Sheets API in the autumn, so SAFE are going to have to change the way they connect to it, and that's being deployed this way round as a result to make things easier. So how do you spot them? Well, here's the emailer. When you type email, you'll see that it's got a different icon. It has an icon to identify that there is a little box that it's coming out of. That's the package. These are linked transformers that I've already got downloaded. This is a custom transformer that hasn't yet been downloaded. So that's the way of identifying it. When you click into an emailer transformer now, you'll see that it's got a very different name in the top of the transformer to highlight the publisher and the package and the tool itself. So basically, if you see the name decimal place separated, then it's probably part of a package. If we go and have a look at a format, you can see that this is a Google BigQuery writer. It's in the writer gallery, and you can see that what we've got here is the same convention, safe.google hyphen BigQuery.google. So that's part of a package as well. That's a format writer in this case. And you can see here's a web connection, the Azure Cognitive Services package here. It's part of the Azure AI package, and in this case we've got a web connection. So a number of different ways of spotting them. So let's go and have a look at doing this ourselves and see where we can locate a package. So let's say you wanted to build a workspace and you wanted to have an endpoint in the workspace where it sends an email to somebody. Well, you're going to need an emailer to do that. You can see you can search for it in the Transformer quick add gallery. There's the emailer. I can click it. It'll go and download it. It polls the server. I've got internet access and I've got the ability to get to the hub, so it doesn't have a problem. You may need to go into your proxy settings if you haven't got any web access. There's my emailer. You can see if I click into it, you can see that there's the naming convention difference that I talked about. If I go to Tools, FME Options, and I go to the Packages section, you can see I've got an emailer package now, and safe.emailer, there's the version number, and you can see that I've got the ability to remove it or I could update it. So that now is a package. This FME package contains the FME emailer transformer. The package will always tell you what's inside it. And as you can see, it's managed and deployed through this interface here. You can see that the S3 transformer, or the S3 package, I beg your pardon, has got an update available for it. There's the update option. You can see inside here we've got an S3 connector transformer, and there's a web connection in here as well. And if I just go and click update, you'll see it's version 106 at the moment. And in this case, it's going to go and grab the latest version from hub.safe.com, and you can see it's jumped a few versions to 109. If you want to understand what the difference is between version 6 and version 9, if you go to the hub and go and look for the S3 connector, you can see that there it is, and there's the versioning. So I had version 6 and it's version 9. If I go to the history, you can see the difference between them. Okay, so that's a little bit more about packages for you to hopefully take on board. They're going to be a major part of the way that content is deployed, so we wanted to give that a little bit more attention. Item number 2 then is data type preservation. Now this one probably passed most people by, and it's a minor change, but it's going to lead to some more significant changes. It does have a big impact. It also answers a few questions around why some of the data types in your output might have defaulted to a really long character string. And basically, when we talk about data types, what we're referring to is the way in which you store your attribute values. So whether that's an integer, a small integer, a double, a decimal with a certain precision, a character string, short or long, all of those data types are going to be defined in your target data set, but they're also defined on the source when you read them in. The challenge is that historically transformers are pretty dumb when it comes to data type. They don't understand data type, and as a result, things can get subtly adjusted through your workflow without you immediately noticing, and it means that you have to go and do a little bit of tinkering with your target schema to get data types to match up. Now the reason why I'm showing this is because of a bit of a tip-off from the FME Evangelist. Now that's a chap called Mark Island. He works for Safe Software. That's his Twitter handle. I'd encourage you to go and check some of the things out that he publishes, including his blog postings. He made me aware of this, and I'm adding a little bit of extra information around what he's put out, because I think it's really valuable. So let's just go and have a look at a little bit of that in a bit of detail. In order to do that, I'm actually going to just close a few things down, and I'm going to tuck FME 2020 and FME 2019 onto the canvas here, and we're just going to have a look at two workspaces, one called 2019.fmw and one called 2020.fmw, and on the left hand side of the screen you can see FME 2019, and on the right FME 2020. So two different versions of the software, effectively the same workspace. You can see that we have a little annotation in here that allows you to see the data types that we've got. We have a series of transformers, and what I want to draw your attention to is a bit of a subtlety to how attributes pass through a workspace and how the data types get managed. If we just go to the target schema and go and have a look at user attributes, you can see that I've got an attribute definition set to automatic mode, which basically means that the target schema is going to adapt based on what is passed to it. So that's important to be able to see how it's going to help to allow us to show how FME reacts here. So I'm going to add an attribute manager into the workflow, and I'm going to effectively rename two attributes. So you can see here I've got neighborhood name and I've got visitor count, and I'm going to call that visitors and neighborhood respectively. So you can see I've applied a rename. Now what I want you to do is draw your attention to this annotation that is going to update automatically. Neighborhood name and visitor count, if I click OK, you'll see that they get changed to text 200 fields. Now that has an implication, because effectively what's happened now is your target schema is going to have a much wider text field, and the impact is that it can contain anything up to 200 characters. Anything over that will get truncated, and also there's no real validation around number values, so it's something to be aware of. Effectively, by changing the name, the transformer, because it's dumb of data type, means that the impact is that you end up just passing through a default value to the end. I'm going to throw in an area calculator, and you'll see this happens as well. There's an area calculator calculating the area of each of these parks. Underscore area is the attribute that gets created. I get another text 200 field. Now, ideally, that would be at least a number field of some description, but because the area calculator doesn't produce text. If I throw the statistics calculator in place and just adjust the output port connection, so I just want the complete port set up, and I'll come into here and I will set up the statistics for min, max, and I think I'll just have the average in there. So I've got three new ones, min, max and average, text 200 fields. Okay, now you can probably guess where we're going to go with this. In FME 2020 you can see that if I drag in an attribute manager and come in to change the name of neighborhood and the name of visitor counts, there's the two attributes. Click OK, you can see that their data type gets maintained, still a text 40 and a small int. Throw in an area calculator and it generates a double automatically. Throw in a statistics calculator and go in and set up the interface, which is new for FME 2020. So completely new interface, much more sensible interface, allowing you to have a lot more control over your output data. Now you can see I've got doubles in here as well. Super subtle change, has a real implication for management and identification and validation of data as you pass it through your workspace, now that transformers are very slightly more aware of data type. It paves the way to things like potentially having the ability to actually set and hard code data type directly in the transformers. That's not available just yet, but hopefully that's something that we might see at some point in the future. Now, because I flicked this slide on a little bit too soon earlier on, you got a bit of a preview of what I was going to talk about. That is bulk mode. Bulk mode is something that has been around for a while. We, for the last couple of webinars we've done in the past, we've focused on bulk mode in a bit of detail. I want to dig into bulk mode a little bit more, because what we've never done is show you the implication of how bulk mode affects your workspaces that were authored previously through to actually making some changes to apply bulk mode to certain parts of your process. And that's what I'm going to do next. What I need to do first of all is just quickly highlight to you what it is. If you're an existing user of FME, bulk mode is important to you because you're going to need to consider it when you're adapting your existing workspaces. New users are going to see a different, subtle difference between certain parts of how data flows through your workspaces when you author them, and I want to highlight what that means. Bulk mode, very simply, is where FME is able to pass features through your process without necessarily carrying a whole lot of metadata or schema information with every individual feature. You can send a bulk batch of features through a workspace knowing collectively about their schema rather than individually knowing. So it's a little bit like going on holiday, if we could do that anymore, going on holiday with a suitcase full of things that you never use on that holiday. It would be much more efficient to take those things out of your bag ahead of time and make sure that you're not carrying that extra weight in your luggage with you. Exactly the same applies to an FME workspace. Every individual feature, the lighter you can make it as it passes through the workspace, the more efficient it's going to be. So bulk mode is a programmatic change that SAFE have been making to FME over a series of few versions to make processing your data much more quick. What does it apply to? Yes, it applies to formats. Yes, it applies to transformers. Not all of them though. So that's the important thing. As FME changes over time, new features, new capabilities are being given bulk mode, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit now. So here's a little movie clip to show you the implications of bulk mode. On the left hand side we have an old version of FME, and on the right hand side we have a new version of FME. Two identical workspaces, but you've got newer transformers in the one on the right. Look at the difference to the feature flow on the left to the feature flow on the right. What you're seeing, and I'm actually going to rerun that just right from the beginning, because you can actually see that when we kick it off, the one on the left has got that trickle feed of data processing through it. So we just start that up, hit run, and you can see that trickle of data. On the right hand side though, here you can see a bulk set of data processing through. Lumps of data passing through the workspace in defined blocks of content, and you can see that there are sort of whole numbers appearing. The one on the right is finished, 15.3 seconds to process all of those features, so 150 odd thousand features, which have been cloned for the sake of this exercise, just effectively duplicated to create nearly 800,000 features passing through the latter end of that workspace. The one on the left has only just finished, so it's basically half the amount of time to process, and that's because the one on the right has bulk mode capability. If we just step through and look at a particular scenario, in order to do that I'm going to break out a workspace, and what we've got on the right hand side of the screen here is FME 2020, and I'm going to go and get a workspace. So in order to do this I'm just going to open one up. So I've got one that is here, and you can see the workspace, and there's a reader on the left. It's just a CSV reader reading a little bit of data. There's an attribute manager, there's a tester, an area calculator, statistics calculator, nothing too fancy for the sake of this exercise. I'm just going to run it just to show you that we get a lump of data coming out of this reader, 800,000 features, another lump of 800,000 features, then all of a sudden a trickle of data flowing out of here. Now that's because the reader and the attribute manager are bulk mode enabled, but this is a workspace that has been around for a few versions of FME, and it still works, it's fine, but you can use the capability of FME 2020 to basically give you a little bit of more bang for your buck. If we go and look at the navigator window on the left hand side, you can see that there are some upgradable transformers. The area calculator, the statistics calculator, and the tester are all on a version older than current. The current version is version 3, that's version 2. We've got version 9, version 8, here we've got version 4 of version 3. That means that we can actually do some good to this workflow. But you don't just want to do a blanket change. You want to go and find out if it's going to be important to you. Go and have a look at the options to upgrade, and we can have a look at the area calculator here. Before we do it, if we show the changes, you can see in here that we get a little pop-up. There we go. And it tells you that it's got bulk mode support been added to it. So we're going to upgrade that one in a second. If we look at the tester, we've got the same capability. Here's the transformer as it stands at the moment. If you right click on it, you can choose to upgrade it. You get a warning because you shouldn't just do a blanket upgrade. Have a look at the changes for this transformer, and if it says things like bulk mode, or if it says things like performance enhancement, here you can see bulk mode has been added in, then maybe there's a value in going ahead and changing it. You ought to have a look at the interface as well. It's quite likely that that has changed. You've got a before and after. So I've now upgraded the tester, and if I rerun my workspace from the beginning, hopefully what we'll see is that we get our lump of data coming through out of the reader into the attribute manager. There we go. And then out the attribute manager. And now with our tester, we're more than likely going to see our trickle of data coming out of the area calculator instead. Here's our lump of 100,000 features that has come through the tester. Okay, so all I'm going to do with this workspace is stop it, right click, and I'm going to upgrade this one. And I'm going to upgrade my statistics calculator, and the statistics calculator is a bit more of a serious upgrade because that's why you get this. You should read these warning messages. In this case, this transformer has got a very different interface, and you actually also lose a port. So if you're connected to the cumulative port and you just do an in situ upgrade, you're going to lose a port from here that you have to either add in again, or try and identify what change to make. Here, if I rerun this workspace now, what you're going to see is that rather than data trickling through the workflow, you're going to see those lumps of data making the way through each individual transformer in that mechanism that we were seeing a moment ago. Now, this is taking much longer than it needs to. But I'm just doing it for demonstration purposes. You'll see I've got this set up in cache mode. These little pots are filling up with data, so I'm caching the data locally. And that's so that I can rerun or replay this workspace for any point here. That's a feature that's been in FME for a good while now, and it allows you to do some decent debugging and testing without having to rerun your entire workspace. But what you're seeing now is that this data is no longer trickling through the workflow. You're getting these lumps of data making the way through. This statistics calculator is set up in a blocking mode, so effectively no data can come out of it until all 800,000 features have made their way to the end. So you get the idea. I'm not going to wait for those features to finish. I'm just going to stop it and dive on to the next portion of the process. There is a document here. It's a long URL, but basically it's improving performance bulk mode. It's a long URL, but if you just go and look in the FME documentation for FME Workbench, you'll find an article that describes the bulk mode capability. Okay, and item number 4 in our 5 hot features. We're going to have a quick look at the ESRI Shape format updates. The reason why we're focusing on this is because ESRI Shape is the most important and popular spatial format in FME by a long chalk. So that means that there are a huge amount of people using the Shape format globally for lots of different things. In the spatial arena, it's used as a transfer format, it's used as a container, it's used to to store data in, a very very popular, well-known GIS system, the logo of which is in the bottom corner there, that anyone in our sector will be aware of, and you can see that in FME 2019 there was a new tech preview reader. So that is just highlighted here. There were two readers, the official one and the technology preview. SAFE bring in something that's new, and they don't typically immediately take away the old thing unless they really have to. So the tech preview was in FME 2019. It is a complete rewrite of the Shape format, and it's now out of tech preview. And in addition to that rewrite that happened in FME 2019, on top of that there has been a series of additional changes, and I touched on at the start of this session where you can go and find that information. You can go and have a look in the change log and search for Shape, and you can then sift through some of the changes yourself, but I'm going to do that work for you here, because I've highlighted the ones that I think matter. The first one, there's a couple of majors and a few minor changes. The first one I think is really important, and that's the shapefile writer has added the option to split a dataset when files exceed a 2 GB file format limit. And the reason for that is because formats like ESRI Shape and MapInfo Tab are both built on the old DBase standard, which has a 2 GB file limit. So you go over that point, your process stops because you can't load any more data into that output format. What has been added into the Shape writer now is the ability to effectively, I guess it's those of you who know FME have come across the term fan out. It's a little bit like fan out, where effectively what happens is when it over spills your 2 gig limit, FME will automatically create a brand new output file with a number suffix in a sequence, and it will put some more data into that file. In practice, if you want to then go and open up that data, it'll treat them as separate files. Whereas if you do this with the FME feature store format, the difference there is that FME automatically creates multiple output files, but you only need to point your process to read it back at the first file, and then it automatically goes and grabs the other. That's not how the reader will work. The shapefile reader will work. So it'll treat it as separate files. But the beauty of this is you don't get any failed translations because your data's too big for shape format anymore. You'll just create multiple shapefiles. The other thing to consider though is that you will end up potentially with geographically very different locations of data potentially in the same file. So you might have data from Warwickshire and Angus in one shapefile, and you might have London and the South Coast in the other one. Whereas if you consider using something like a transformer like the spatial sorter, you might be able to sort of allocate your data to geographies so that at least you've got a chance of having data that's roughly in the same place in the same file. The spatial sorter is a custom transformer worth going and look at for a number of reasons, that being one of them. The other major one that I think matters is the ability to have different types of spatial index files created. This is the dialog box highlighted in yellow there, that was the old FME writer. So you could turn on that option and then you would generate a spatial index that was supported by ESRI tools, which was great. Nice to be able to do that. In the old days you actually had to have an ESRI license and an ESRI installed in order to get that capability. Now you don't need that. But in FME 2020 we've now got the ability to create different types of spatial index. So it's subtly different, but it's a bit of a big deal really. Now you can create spatial indexes that are supported by the open source community. So because Shape is such a prevalent format in open source applications as well as the vendor's own tools, QGIS and MapServer have a spatial index file called a QIX file, QIX. You can produce that, you can produce the ESRI one, or you can produce both when you're writing your data out. And then, as I say, there's a couple of minor issues. First one I'm going to point to here. I mean, arguably this was a bit of a bug. Basically, the format allows you to actually have empty files. Some third-party applications producing shape files create a shape file and put nothing in it. A number of customers have got in touch with us in the past where they were producing gridded data and they wanted one file per part of their grid, whether there was data in it or not, for completeness effectively. And Shape allows you to create a file with nothing in it, but FME wouldn't allow you to read files with nothing in it and identify that there was nothing in it. Now you can do that. You may also need a transformer called the No Features Tester. That is also a custom transformer. We touched on that on the World Tour event, so I'm not going to go into more detail on it, but go and have a look at that. It's a really handy one. And then the other thing that I'm going to draw your attention to is there's a couple of additional parameters. One is how you read back data. So this is specifically on the reader. If there is blank or empty content, do you want to read it as missing or null? Now, SAFE did an audit on a lot of the formats that they support and identified that there's about 15 types of nothing in FME. That's something that we spend a lot of time talking about on our advanced FME training. So drop a note in the questions or the chat window there if you're interested in finding out more about the training courses that we've got. But now you've got the ability to handle that right on the reader without having to worry about using transformers to manage the nothing values. And that means that if you're reading lots of shapefiles and writing them direct to a database, you might not need to do much in the way of transformation to manage your blank data. And it might just load into the database, whereas previously it might have failed. The same is true for dates. Dates are pedantic little things that have many different formats. In this case, on the writer, you have the ability to force it as a string or as a date, and that is new. That wasn't there before. As I say, small detail, but one that was worth mentioning. And I'm going to end today's session on the last thing, which is connection styling. Now, again, we did spend a little bit of time touching on this on the World Tour event. If you want to go and look at that session, that will be up on our on-demand webinar page this week, and you can see that there is a section called Transform. That is where we covered the ability to use connection styling and also do a sort of a hidden feature, which is feature tracing. However, what we didn't talk about was the ability to actually configure those settings. I'm going to take you there now. So I'm just going to go and open up Workbench, and I'm going to go to Tools and FME Options, and I'm going to go to the Appearance Settings. And we're going to point to a couple of things in here. First thing is that from a visual experience perspective, dark mode now is a fully fledged feature of FME. It's been there for a little while, but it has, if you've noticed, up until the end of FME 2019, it has been a beta. It is now a fully fledged citizen of the product, so it is a full capable component. So if you like dark mode, if that's for you, then you can do that. You can see in here there's some canvas artifacts. You've now got the ability to change your path and configure it at an application level in here. You've always had, whilst bookmark coloring has been possible, you've had the ability to define specific bookmark names and export them and import them. You can also see that if we scroll down a little bit, that we've got, what have we got down here? So we've got some connection styles. There we go. And you can see that here we've got some different style options for our connection styles. And again, those are also exportable and importable. So you can create ones with a certain name, and you might define names that are things like pass and fail, or positive and negative. So positive might be green and negative might be red. And this is so that you can highlight certain sections or links within your workflow where data is being failed out of the process or it's passing through to the next stage. So there's a few options you've got there. But as I said, you can export these now, and you haven't been able to do that. So there we go. There's our 5 hot features for today. I'd like to thank you for attending. Hope you found some of those tips and tricks useful. If you want to go and find out a little bit more about some of the training offerings that we've got, or any of the events that are coming up, or watch back any of our previous webinars, if you go to our on-demand webinars page, you'll see that there is a little tab on the left-hand side that allows you to effectively go and filter on FME sessions. And in there, you'll be able to look at the historic sessions that we've done for a series of different industries. So whether that's water or transportation or government, then there are sessions that you can go and have a look at in there. The FME community is available, and also knowledge.safe.com is where you can ask questions to the wider FME community. You can post ideas of things that you want, and you can also see that over on the right hand side there is an email address. Drop us a note if you've got any questions about anything you've seen today, or you want to know anything more about the FME product stack. FME@onespatial.com. If you are a customer of ours already and you already have a maintenance and support contract, you are entitled to contact us at support@onespatial.com. That's the way to get in touch with us. If you're not sure whether you're on a maintenance contract, drop us a note to fme@onespatial.com first, and then we'll let you know what you can do around our support desk and what features and capabilities you get access to. But for today, I'd like to thank you all very much for attending, and we hope to see you on one of our events sometime soon. Thank you very much.